Welcome to the Millennial Body Image Project. We're two licensed dietitian nutritionists bringing you conversations that cut through the food noise, debunk wellness trends, and remind you that it's not you, it's the systems stacked against you.
Together, we'll explore the struggles so many of us carry, challenge the fear-mongering that fuels them, and offer evidence-based, compassionate tools to support your body on its own terms.
Because your lived experience matters, and your body is not the problem.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Millennial Body Image Project, where we talk about all the stuff nobody wants to say out loud, but absolutely everyone is thinking. So today's episode honestly might be one of my favorites that we've done in a while because we're going somewhere today that feels super timely. So between the GLP-1 craze taking over literally everywhere, the Devil Wears Prada sequel dropping, suddenly everyone is spiraling about aging and the constant flood of perfection in our social media feeds. Our collective body image is taking a hit. I am seeing this in every single client session that I have. Plus, social media is also really amplifying these unrealistic beauty ideals to an extreme. So no, it's not just all in your head. In today's episode, I'm joined by Caitie Corradino. She's a registered dietitian nutritionist, a breathwork facilitator, yoga teacher, fitness instructor, and a body image specialist. We're talking about why so many of us feel stuck and isolated when it comes to our bodies, the very real pressure coming from Hollywood and diet culture, and most importantly, the actual tools, not the quick fixes, that can help you build a healthier, more peaceful relationship with your body. Two quick announcements before we dive into the show today. As you all know, the podcast always takes a summer break, so we're going to start with that in July, so you have like 2-3 more episodes until we get there. Second, I created and released a new free guide this week talking about what actually helps for gut health without food rules, and it is a non-diet gut health audit. I'm framing this as a no BS guide for people who are tired of elimination diets, wellness overwhelm, and trying to fix their body. The guide will be diving into how to get started on gut health support without cutting up massive food groups, obsessing over every ingredient, a full-page gut wellness checklist, or spending like $400 on supplements, because trying to support your gut and resolve your symptoms shouldn't make you afraid of food. So if you're interested in that, the link to get the free guide will be in the show notes. Okay, well, I guess we can get started. So, Caitie, Thanks so much for coming on the show today. Before we dive into the extremely relevant and juicy things that I already mentioned before we started recording, why don't you tell people a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me today. I am so excited to chat with you. I feel that our philosophy and values align so much. My name's Caitie Corradino. I'm a registered dietitian, nutritionist. I'm also a breathwork facilitator and a yoga teacher and a fitness instructor and a body image specialist. And so I love to combine nutrition with somatic and spiritual self-care practices to help people release body image baggage, food anxiety, and recover from disordered eating disorders. I've been in private practice for about 7-8 years now, and I've created what I call the Full Soul Nutrition method. That's the name of my practice, Full Soul Nutrition. And it is that combination of practical nutrition and somatic and spiritual self-care practices to help people really drop into a sense of ease in their bodies. Yeah.
I love that. As we talk about on this podcast all the time, it's never only about the food.
No. Yeah. I think what's so ironic is I double majored in psychology and nutrition in my undergraduate at NYU. And when it came time to go to grad school, I was like, should I become a dietitian or should I become a therapist? And where I was in that phase of my life, I was like, I'm going to be a dietitian, because being a dietitian, it's like a little more straightforward. You give people a little bit more of a toolkit, and it's just more practical and straightforward. And it's so ironic because now I feel like I am a hybrid dietitian therapist anyway. And nutrition is anything but straightforward. Food is anything but straightforward. Our relationship with it is anything but straightforward. And it just goes to show you how black and white my mind was back then. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go for this because it's so straightforward. I'm going to figure out the perfect diet and prescribe it to everyone.
Yeah, I think a lot of us go into school thinking that it's so funny because I do supervision as well. And so when some people I'll interview people for supervision, or I'll talk to people if they're like interested in pursuing this career path, right? Because you have to get a master's now. And they're like, oh, I just know a lot about nutrition and wellness, and I just really want to share that with people. And I'm like, that's great. And then I'm also like, you have no idea how much you
Yes.
don't know, which
Yes.
we are constantly reminded of on a daily basis in this profession. So it's not like we know everything. And if anyone says that they know everything, run the other way, because they definitely don't.
Yes. Yes. I was just in a session this morning with a client, and I was thinking about how I was doing something in a way that I had never done it before. This is probably the 300th client I've worked with, and we were doing a DBT skill, like urge surfing, and I do a lot of DBT skills with clients too. I have the RODBT certification, and the way we were using it was completely unique to her, completely unique to this client. We were adapting it in a way that was going to work for her life and her situation. And yeah, it just was crossing my mind this morning that I will never be done learning, and I will never have seen every type of person and every type of situation. There's just a constant evolution. And that's why things like supervision are so important too. If I'm not constantly checking in with my supervisors as a dietitian, that's when you get dietitians that just end up handing everyone a template and doing the same thing for every person. Unfortunately, it does exist sometimes. Yeah.
Yes, unfortunately. I think you can find that in every profession.
Yeah.
But so speaking of things that a lot of people are struggling with, but there's no one straightforward way to deal with it. So
Yeah.
when I prepare interview questions or topics, I like to really dig into people's lore. And so if I was looking into your podcast, I was looking into your Instagram, I was looking at your website, and you had an episode from 2 years ago that was called When All Your Friends Are on a Diet. And I know that you and I also have been hearing from a lot of clients that this is exactly what it feels like right now in the era of Ozempic and GLP-1s, where everybody is either talking about GLP-1s or it feels like we're all surrounded by people who are on them. And you've talked about how this era of weight loss drugs being everywhere has made a lot of your clients, who you said have made such beautiful progress in their relationship with food and their body image, feel really stuck in their healing and triggered by the types of conversations and what people are seeing on social media. And this is so relatable. So can you talk about why you think this era of Ozempic and GLP-1s and everything makes people feel really stuck, and how they get triggered also?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so passionate about this topic. I think there's two things that come to mind for me right away when I think, why does everyone feel so stuck by this? And the first reason is that our brains are just being brains, right? So when your brain is exposed to something again and again, it's going to respond like, okay, that's familiar now. That's maybe what I should be doing. That's what safety is. When your brain is not exposed to body diversity, when your brain is not exposed to people who are eating intuitively and balanced and caring for their health in a holistic way and not equating health with the pursuit of weight loss, then it's only natural that your mind is just going to start producing these thoughts of, this is what I should be doing too. Obviously, this is what I should be doing too. And it's so important to expose ourselves as much as we can, as much as humanly possible, to communities of people who are still steering clear from the, I don't even know what we want to call it, but using Ozempic as a weight loss injectable, right? I am a believer that Ozempic is a tool that, and I don't want to call it Ozempic. I don't know why I always give that brand so much clout. There's
Right.
other
Yeah,
brands,
I know.
GLP-1, but, there are so many people who are using GLP-1s as a way to support their health in some way, and that's important to acknowledge. And when people are using this as a weight loss injectable, they're titrating it at levels that have not been studied. Like, it's very dangerous. And so exposing yourself to people who are not caught up in all of that is really important. And so finding communities of people who are still allowing their bodies to be in their natural, healthy state and truly caring for themselves in a healthy, balanced way is really important. I think people feel stuck because there are only so many communities that exist like that. And I think so many people feel isolated and on an island, and it's so horribly sad, but I do realize sometimes when I'm working with a client that I might be the only person that they've spoken to today that isn't caught up in the pursuit of weight loss. And I might be the only person they've spoken to today that has a healthy and balanced relationship with food and feels genuinely comfortable in my body. So lack of community and like constant exposure to the messaging, I think, is making people feel really stuck right now. And then I also think that part of it too is people are thinking if they can just rewire their mindset, like that will be enough. I feel like people are trying to cure themselves with like just affirmations, like over and over again, and just reminding themselves why Ozempic won't work for me and why it's dangerous. And unfortunately, the mind is not enough. We also need to use what I call like body tools, somatic tools, and soul tools, like emotional tools, to really process the deeper stuff that comes with all of this, right? When we're constantly exposed to all of this messaging, a really deeper, more emotional part of our soul is getting touched right now. Like this inner like little girl inside of us that is triggered by all of these things, right? And also, I think what I said about like body tools as well, it's important that we remember that continuing to take care of ourselves and cultivating a sense of somatic safety is what's also going to help us make these triggers bounce off of us a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that in session, you might be the only person they've talked to that day who is not on the GLP-1 train. You might be the only person that month
Yeah.
that they've talked to
Yeah.
that's not on this
Yeah.
cult
Yeah.
of GLP-1, basically. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't think that
Yeah.
it's a cult, but I feel like it really can feel that way.
Yes.
Because I have so many conversations with clients in session where it's almost like a feeling of desperation of
Mhm.
they've been trying to do things on their own in many different ways, and then all of a sudden, it wasn't them who changed, it's the environment around them that changed. And it's not like, "Oh, I'll just take a detox from social media, and then I won't see this anymore because I'm not constantly exposed to celebrity culture or all the chatter that's around this stuff, or looking into the new research, or when health practitioners are talking about it." No, you go to the doctor, you hear about it. You go to a different
Mhm.
practitioner, you hear about it. You talk to your friends, you hear about it. You talk to your family, you're down the street.
Mhm.
We're once again in the grocery store seeing the tabloids that are like, "Can you believe this? Blah, blah, blah." It's
Yeah.
just everywhere. So unless you have completely isolated yourself in a bubble where you're basically not speaking to anyone, and even if you try to do that, again, you do feel very isolated, like you were saying
Mhm.
before. And I think it's gotten to the point where some people, where it feels like the only way that they think they can feel better about themselves and their bodies is to go on one of these medications, which is really disheartening because, again, it's not them who has changed. It's the circumstances and the environment around them that has changed,
Mhm.
that's making them feel like I need to keep up with the Joneses in a sense,
Mhm.
when really it's everything around them that's completely messed up.
Yeah.
It's a really hard
Yeah.
place to be.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a really hard place to be. And I feel like so many times in session, I am saying to clients, it's not your fault that you're thinking this way.
Yeah.
Again, the brain's just being a brain responding to what's going around in the environment. And our brain is going to produce thoughts to keep us safe, not happy, right? So it's if your brain's job is to keep you safe and not happy, then of course the first thought you're going to have is perhaps I should do this too. That's the only
Mhm.
way I'm gonna feel as confident as I perceive the celebrities on the red carpet to be. That's the only way I'm going to feel accepted in this community that I'm hanging out in, where everyone else is losing weight and suddenly I'm not. And so it's not anyone's fault that they're thinking this way. And I guess we could sit in the fact that it's pretty unfair that we have to do this work, right? And that there seemed to be, and yes, we still had miles and miles to go, but there seemed to be a bit of progress made between 2010 and 2020. And I feel like between 2020 and 2026, so much of it has been reversed. And that's just unfair.
Yeah. This is how I know we're on the same page, because I was literally just about to say that.
Yeah.
Just when we felt like, okay, we're finally making progress. We're getting away from the 90s heroin chic. We're getting away from early 2000s low-rise jeans that didn't even cover your butt crack and like all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And now we're right back where we started.
Right back where we started.
Jeez.
And it's so unbelievable that at first I didn't believe it. When a client I first heard about GLP-1s and the fact that people were using them as a weight loss injectable from a client. I feel like I had kept myself in a little bit of a bubble. And this was in 2022, actually. And a client came to session and was saying, maybe I should go on this. I've heard about this, and she was describing it to me, and I responded so quickly, no, what? No, don't do that. And the client a few weeks later had told me that she was quite taken aback by how dismissive I was from it, and was actually like, felt like I didn't actually hold enough space for her to process that. And it was a big learning moment for me as a clinician. And it also illustrates just how much I thought this was going to be such an irrelevant thing. I did not think at all that we'd see more than half of Hollywood go on it. I did not think at all that it was going to be prescribed like water from doctors. I just didn't think that at all. So I feel like it does speak to how much progress we had made previously. The way I just reacted like, oh, no one's ever going to do that.
Yeah, unfortunately, we were all wrong on that front.
Yeah.
Now it's just we're living in this crazy world of unrealistic beauty standards and aging standards and so many things like that. So actually, I did want to talk about that. Speaking of unrealistic beauty standards. So today, on the day we're recording, when I was planning these topics or things I wanted to talk about, I saw that you were posting on your stories about Devil Wears Prada 2, because for the listeners, when we're recording this, I think it came out last weekend. Last weekend. So just a couple of days ago. And I think it's being, in general, pretty well received, which makes me happy as a millennial. But also, I want to talk about Devil Wears Prada 2, because most of the things that are being said about the movie, even though this is a canonical moment for many millennials and we're super excited for it, it's also really messing with people's body image and people's minds, because it looks like Hollywood isn't aging anymore. And holy body dysmorphia. Like everything on Instagram and TikTok talking about this movie right now is putting side by side, basically before and after photos of Anne Hathaway and Meryl Streep and Emily Blunt and like all these people who are in the cast, and how it basically looks like they have not aged from 20 years ago. And it's basically, oh, these women haven't aged a day, and oh, aging like fine wine, and all these similar types of comments. So let's talk about it, because I know you have a lot to say.
Yeah. I feel like one thing that's not said enough is that what's more problematic than the fact that everyone's Botoxing their wrinkles away is that no one's admitting that they're Botoxing their wrinkles away or talking about it. I almost think it would be just perfectly acceptable if Anne Hathaway or Meryl Streep wanted to walk down the red carpet and say, oh, no, honey, this isn't natural. Like, I wish that there was a conversation about that, because they're all just, yes, I am aging fine wine. You're too sweet. Thank you. And we have to stay grounded in reality here. These people have so much money, so many resources, so much time, and they can invest as much as they want to into maintaining the same face that they had 20 years ago. And look, there's so much we can talk about how, and we're going to talk about how that distorts our perception of our own faces and what we should look like in photos and what we should be looking like in 20 years from now. And I'm just so flabbergasted by the fact that they're just not saying, yes, and this is in fact not natural. I see this in Hollywood everywhere. It's do Kim Kardashian's workout so that you can get Kim Kardashian's body. It's, no, honey, Kim Kardashian's body comes from surgery. And why don't we just say that? Body autonomy. She can get surgery if she wants to. Okay, I'm personally not going to go under the knife in that way. I personally don't have the money. And I personally would never. And body autonomy, she can do what she wants. But let's talk about that more and just acknowledge that fact. That's one thing I want to begin with.
Yes. And it's interesting because there's a really interesting parallel to the GLP-1 conversation that we were just having is when celebrities were trying to be more under the radar that they were taking GLP-1s. No one was saying they were taking GLP-1s. It was just, oh, I've just been eating vegetables and going on walks in the park.
Yes.
And it was like, girl, no, you haven't. And again, body autonomy, that is completely fine. But it's important for us as normal non-celebrity people with not billions of dollars to just funnel into anti-aging and what looks like reversing aging, basically, to be having these conversations that, you can do whatever you want with your body, but also let's not pretend that we're not going to these extra lengths because it's completely fine to do that if that's what you want to do that. And I think I've said this on the podcast before. If I was as celebrity as Anne Hathaway, I'd probably be doing the same thing. Because when you look at the way that Hollywood basically tries to erase women as they get older, I would try to quote hang on to my youth in any way that I could, probably. If that was if my job depended on my appearance, like theirs basically does, then I can't say that I wouldn't do stuff like that also. But that's not the case by far for me and for most people in the world. So where the body dysmorphia and almost aging dysmorphia comes in is when you look at these before and after photos from 2006 or something to 2026, and it looks like these people haven't aged, it then almost sets up this expectation of, I need to be doing every single thing that I can because God forbid I have a single wrinkle, or God forbid I start to look like I'm in my 30s or in my 40s or in my 50s or whatever, because I want people to say that I'm aging gracefully, or I want people to say that I'm aging like fine wine or whatever. And I think there's a difference between aging gracefully, quote unquote, in the sense that I don't want to be like hobbled over. I don't want to be injured all the time. I don't want to be falling and breaking my hip. I want to retain my health in a reasonable way for as long as I can. But this is completely distorted, and it's really fueling even more of the body dysmorphia that is now going on by saying, oh no, these people definitely aren't on Ozempic and they're definitely not getting all these different Botox and surgeries and so many different things. And again, do whatever you want, but let's not pretend that's not happening and then just say, oh, actually, this is the way that you should look when you're 70 something years old, because there hasn't been any micromanaging of your body to that point.
Yeah. I feel that someone with a platform as powerful as Anne Hathaway has a responsibility to say, this is how I've achieved this look. And because I understand what you're saying too about how much pressure she must be under to not age, I think our responsibility as the general public is to stop posting shit like, oh, look at her before and after.
Yes.
Or, to stop commenting shit like, oh, this person looks really wrinkly or this person looks really old today. Did you see the photo of Julia Roberts that went viral it was probably about a year ago now? She posted on her Instagram a photo of her and her niece, Emma Roberts, and people just in the comments were like, whoa, she looks old. Wow, she lost her beauty. And I just hope one day we live in a world where it's a bit more normal to think before saying something like that. maybe she looks older because she is older.
Yeah.
And perhaps
Whoa.
Julia Roberts actually did respond quite beautifully in interviews about that too, and talked about how I look really happy in this photo. I was having a great day with my niece and I just popped it up and shared it. And I'm actually so glad that photo went viral and that conversation happened because, yeah, I feel like our responsibility is to question how quick we are to just be like, oh, old. And let's be honest, again, our brains are just being brains. So if our brains are programmed to think that wrinkle equals bad, the thought might cross your mind for a second when you see a photo of a celebrity who has aged or a photo of your mom who has aged or someone that you know. You're just like, whoa, they're looking older. And then that second step of what's the emotion I'm attaching to this right
Yeah.
now? What's the negativity I'm attaching to this right now? Yeah, I think that's worth mentioning too.
Yeah. And I think I want to circle back to this is not a criticism of the cast or a criticism of people who choose to do any of these kinds of things, right? It's more a reflection on the system and what is being normalized and why these people feel the need to do those things for extreme anti-aging and stuff because it is so normalized and not only normalized, but expected of them at this point, right? And then at that point, it becomes expected of us to the point where people are getting Botox when they're in their 20s and stuff. And I don't know when people used to start getting Botox, but I feel like it's way earlier now. We even have like children that are going to Sephora at like age 6, and it's just, oh my God, can we not? I was literally at the mall with my partner like 2 weeks ago or something, and we were walking past Sephora and there was like this gaggle of little girls that were probably between 4 and 7 that all had these very cute little Sephora bags, but I was like, oh my God, like it's starting already. It's like, it's just, again, especially when you compare or when you combine this with the GLP-1 conversation, it's like everyone's shrinking and becoming these like AI robots instead of just being able to be. So no wonder everyone is like, oh, I want to go on Ozempic. Oh, I want to get Botox. Oh, I want to do fillers. I want to get all these things. I want to have a 27-step skincare routine. Of course you do, because look at what the new, even if you could admit that it's unrealistic, beauty standards are becoming. It's completely understandable why anyone would choose to do any of this stuff. And then circling back to what we were talking about before, it makes it even more isolating and even more difficult if you don't want to engage with every step of that and to try and find community that is of a similar mind. It's becoming more and more difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it's becoming more and more difficult as people are getting Botox younger and younger, and babies don't know what their mom's real face looks like, and like all of that scary stuff is happening, right? And I almost feel though like there is going to be this moment, and it's like how the iPhone camera kept getting better and better, and now young people want to use digital cameras again and film cameras again. Have you seen this? Like, turning around with the digital flash camera.
I know. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I have some in my attic.
At some point, if we standardize Botox and lip filler and all of this stuff, at some point, people are going to start romanticizing the human face again. And
imagine.
I hope that happens in the most positive of ways. But I think we need to reflect now on the beauty of the natural human face and remember just how many emotional impacts there's going to be on everyone's face looking the same, on everyone's face turning into that AI filter robotic thing, right? And how can we not make it like the iPhone where, the camera kept progressing so much that all we wanted was just to go back to simple things and natural film. Can we catch this now and let ourselves go back to our digital Fuji film camera now? Yeah.
Love it. I kind of want to dig mine out. I know I still have some. I don't know. I can't guarantee that they'll work, but
Yeah.
And on that point, there was a statement that someone made in one of the articles that was like, yeah, they might have gotten some Botox, but who hasn't had Botox at this point? And this is what we're always coming back to with this conversation, right? It is the normalization and then expectation that, oh, of course they would have had Botox. It's almost like when they're making the list of all of the things that these people have had done, they might not even have included Botox because they're like, oh, everyone does that. So I don't even need to list it because it's just an expectation.
Yeah.
It's a mind fuck. It really is.
Yeah. Just because something is normalized doesn't mean it's normal. Just because something is normalized doesn't mean that it's healthy. Just because something is normalized doesn't mean we shouldn't question it. And I feel like that sounds so obvious, but it's such an important statement to come back to when it comes to nutrition and body image, right? Skipping meals, fasting, unfortunately, normalized doesn't mean that we shouldn't question it. Doesn't mean that it's healthy or normal. And yeah, with the Botox thing, it's just everyone's doing it. Okay. And everyone was smoking, right? And my mom was like 11. She was like lighting up cigarettes, probably, right? There was a point where that was normal too. And it's really interesting that we'll have conversations about stuff like that. And we'll have conversations about how plastic disrupts your hormones, but we don't want to have conversations about how Botox could do the same thing.
That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Okay. If you have no problem taking, again, this is not a criticism on like why people want to do these things.
Yeah.
But if you have no problem taking a GLP-1 injection and you have no problem doing Botox injections, then why are you even talking about microplastics? Like, and you can fill that in with so many different things also.
Yeah.
Like, the irony is so heavy in a lot of this stuff that it's just, and it comes back to what you were saying is just because something is normalized doesn't mean that it's healthy. And what I always say is just because something is normal doesn't mean that it's optimal. And then you can have a whole conversation around, oh, what is optimal? But the example I always like to come back to, because I specialize in GI, is if you're pooping once a week, that's normal for you. I guarantee you that is not optimal. And you're probably having a lot of really uncomfortable things that are going on, even if that is normal for you. And so that may be more normal for you. That's probably not normal for a lot of other people, but that doesn't mean the other people are in optimal bowel movement health either, right? It's thinking about how can we get a little bit closer to what might be best for you and your body instead of jumping from, okay, I'm all the way on one side of things and I'm going to jump all the way to what I think is the absolute best thing for me and my body, because that's where we really get into black and white thinking and perfectionism. And when you work in the eating disorder recovery and chronic dieting recovery community, that's one of the things we're trying to get away from and live a little bit more in the gray area and being okay with not everything being so yes, no, eat this, not that, black and white.
Yes. And again, to come back to the brain being a brain, human brain loves all or nothing. Human brain doesn't love nuance. It's so uncomfortable to sit in nuance. It's so uncomfortable to tolerate that area where you're trying to figure out if something is optimal for you. And we have to be willing to try on a lot of different things in order to figure out what works for us. And I think these solutions like Botox just feel so straightforward. It's if I'm having body image distress, I can get this treatment. My body image distress is gone. Rather than if I'm having body image distress, perhaps I need to make modifications to my diet and self-care routines. Perhaps I need to go on a deeper emotional level and figure out what's going on there with self-confidence and self-esteem and self-worth. Perhaps I need to do some somatic practices that help me release stress and emotions out of my body. That's very nuanced. That's very messy. Botox seems a lot more fun. And our brain will default to choosing that if we can't slow down, right? And now with Ozempic being so accessible, we can just, I always call it Ozempic. I don't know. I feel like that's like,
we're giving them so many marketing dollars right now. Although I doubt it. The people who are
Um,
listening to this podcast, I don't think that.
Not
Anyway.
even like, called that in the UK at all. But yeah, it's just add to cart. You know what? I can do this. This is straightforward. This is easy. It seems like a plug and chug solution, and it's being sold as such. It's being
Yeah.
sold as plug and chug. And I can bottle up Anne Hathaway's confidence on the red carpet if I just do this one thing. And yeah, the gray area nuanced work isn't very sexy. It doesn't sell well. It's not as marketable. And it feels fantastic and it feels great when you get in there for long enough. I don't even want to say to the other side because there really isn't this result. It's just a process and continuing to dive back into that process of caring for yourself and maintaining your body confidence. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's an important note too, is you can have been doing this work for so long, and that's not a guarantee that you're never, ever going to have a bad body image day, a thought of wanting to lose weight or do one of these GLP-1s or get Botox or get fillers or get any of these things, right? So I always like to come back to that. It's like, even if you have been doing this work for a long time, that doesn't mean one of those thoughts is never, ever going to enter your brain ever again. It just means that you have more tools that you're equipped with to work through those thoughts and not take action on those thoughts immediately or at any time in the near future, right? Because we know that while those things do feel like, oh, this could help me as soon as possible, we know that those things are not going to be the things that actually help where the problem came from in the first place. Because the problem was your body. It was beliefs about your body or the systems in place that make you believe that you need to do certain things or fit these unrealistic beauty standards. And we can easily tell you, we don't know any of these people that we're talking about personally, but just because you do those things it's not like the fountain of happiness.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say to clients too, and there's this people fairy tale eating disorder recovery a lot. There's so many accounts online, so many of those popular influencers in the body image and eating recovery space have this post that's just, once upon a time, I felt this way. And then I did this and this. And then I recovered from my eating disorder. And I met my husband and like sunshine and butterflies. And it doesn't mean that recovery and being recovered isn't so beautiful and richer and more fulfilling and just a more sustainable way to live a longer, happier, healthier, more meaningful life. Because that's true. And I wouldn't do this work if I didn't think so. And all of the time, you might have days where you wake up with the body image barometers on -50. And you have the toolbox that you need to work through it. And now you have a different relationship with your body. And it's more like when you wake up and your partner's really bugging you that day and you can work through it. And just because your partner's really bothering you in that moment and you don't feel totally in love with them in that moment, it doesn't mean that you're not going to move through it and make it to the other side, right? It's your body can bug you on some days, and your body image or the way your body looks on a certain day may displease you in certain moments, but it doesn't mean that it's going to cause this intense distress anymore or it's going to cause you to engage in compensatory behaviors anymore. That's the big difference. And we can tolerate that discomfort with so many different tools. And yeah.
Yeah. So actually, perfect segue, because I wanted to talk about some of those tools, because you mentioned earlier tools for the mind, tools for the body, and tools for the soul and or the nervous system on a bad body image day. So if you're someone who's listening and you don't want to go on a GLP-1 or you don't want to do all these different skincare or anti-aging modifications, or even if you do, but you want to continue working on your own body image when you feel like you are surrounded by people who are engaging with these behaviors, what are some of those tools that you would recommend? And feel free to start in any of the categories that you mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah. I love breaking it down into tools for the mind, tools for the body, and tools for the soul, because I think, as I mentioned earlier, we get really caught up in mindset work with body image sometimes, and we think that it is all about just listening to this podcast, which is mindset work, right? If you're listening to this podcast in your ears right now, you're doing mindset work. You're listening to two dietitians blab on about the science and how culture is messed up and all of that stuff. So your mind is being fed really great information right now. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to fix a bad body image day. We also need those tools for the body and tools for the soul. So the mind tools, as I mentioned, are these intellectual tools that help you unlearn what you've learned about diet culture and about how bodies should look. And intellectual tools might also include a good affirmation or something like that, little written reminders to yourself, notes to yourself, things that are about retraining the mind, unlearning, relearning, all of that stuff. And I think we tend to start here because we are a very mind-centric society and we're very comfortable prioritizing the mind. And so why not start just reading all the books about body image? Why not start just listening to all the podcasts? Why not just try to put Post-it note affirmations on my mirror? It's okay to start with the mind as long as we don't forget the other two types of tools, which the body tools are somatic tools that help you cultivate a sense of safety in your skin and help you drop, as I say, below the neck into the body. For so long in my own eating disorder recovery, I am a recovered clinician. I don't know if I mentioned that explicitly, but in my own eating disorder recovery, which was a process over a decade long, I was recovered in my head, but I was still avoiding my body so much. And I
So
still
relatable.
didn't have a sense of my hunger cues and my fullness cues. And I also just didn't feel calm and comfortable in my body. I still wanted to crawl out of my skin. I was eating enough. I was eating balanced meals. And in some sense, on paper, I had healed my relationship with food. And when I was also in a higher level of care for my eating disorder, they passed me right through that. They're like, this girl's good. She's fine. Look at her. But I just didn't want to feel my legs. I didn't want to feel my arms. And because of that, I didn't feel safe in my skin. And I lived my entire day in my head. So somatic tools are about dropping below the head, dropping below the neck into your body so that you can feel a form of visceral relief and really sense your life and really sense your hunger cues and fullness cues and functional cravings. And the somatic tools that I love using are tools like breathwork, stretching, yoga. But somatic tools might also include something as simple as hugging people, anything that gets you into your body. And somatic tools also mean meeting your body's needs on a daily basis. No one's ever had good body image when they've been dehydrated. No one's ever had good body image when they've been starving. No one's ever had good body image if they've only eaten a cookie today. You also need to nourish your vessel and fuel your vessel, and that is the somatic tools as well. So sometimes when you're having a bad body image day, you might just need a really big glass of water and a shower and a balanced meal, and then check in later.
Yeah.
And then the soul tools is like the deeper stuff, the emotional stuff, the inner child stuff. And that might look like working with a great therapist and doing that deeper work for a long period of time. And we can also microdose soul tools. It might look like doing a small spiritual practice that helps you make peace with the things that you cannot control. It might look like doing a journaling practice, writing a letter to yourself, looking at a photo of your younger self, and trying to connect with the fact that is you, and identifying what emotions you're feeling too, and just asking yourself, what does someone who's feeling this emotion need? And most of the time when we are having body image issues, we're feeling isolated, we're feeling lonely, we're feeling stressed, we're feeling anxious. And so I always say to clients, what would you do for a puppy that's feeling those emotions?
You are the puppy.
If a puppy is scared of fireworks, we're going to put the puppy in the room and close the door and maybe light a candle and the puppy like a nice cozy bed. What does a puppy who's feeling anxious need? You probably need a lot of those same things too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah. And again, when it's extremely understandable that anybody would be feeling any of these feelings that we're just talking about in the context of this era that we're living in of GLP-1s and Devil Wears Prada. I know last year there was some, or maybe it was this year, but what is time at this point? There was some new documentary that came out about America's Next Top Model and exposing the behind the scenes of that and how toxic that was for people. But these are like very foundational body image moments as millennials and zillennials as we were growing up. And I'm sure we can all think back to those and be like, that was a foundational moment for me, but then not necessarily realize how much of an impact that has to this day on our body image and our beliefs about bodies and what bodies should and shouldn't look like, quote unquote. So having these tools, even just these, I would call these surface level examples, because I'm sure you go so much deeper in session, obviously. So I just wanted to say thank you for providing all this great information and amazing conversation. I feel like we could have talked for hours about this stuff. So thank you for coming on.
When you said America's Next Top Model documentary, I was like, let's go.
Next episode, let's go. I haven't watched it yet, so I can't really provide any context, but I know there's also one of the women who was on the show who was in a, quote, plus size body at the time. I'm sure she was like size 6 or 8 or something. I know she released a memoir last year, so I want to read that too. So maybe we do that, and then we re-up this episode for a part 2.
Yeah.
It would be so cool. But before we do that, tell everybody where they can find you. So if they want to learn more about these different tools and more about you, they can go do that.
Yeah, truly, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being here. And I also want to name that we got pretty fired up and this is messed up and this is messed up and whatever, like throughout the episode today. And also, there's so much going right as well. This podcast is also the world. This podcast is also part of the bigger puzzle of the world. And I think what you're doing here is so important. And there are spaces like this that are created because of people like you. And it's really definitely making a difference for anyone who listens. And I just want to share that it's really important to remember how much is so good right now. And as we're processing our anger and doing our emotional tools live on this podcast.
Yes.
So just, so much good out there. And thank you for creating this space. It's really important. I hope a lot of millennials find it. People can find me at Full Soul Nutrition is my business. So fullsoulnutrition.com is where you can learn more about the one-on-one work, the workshops, and the retreats that I offer. I'm doing live workshops in London right now. I'm seeing clients in person in London right now where I'm based. But I also do work with clients virtually. And I am licensed in New York and New Jersey as a dietitian. My Instagram is CaitieCRD, Caitie.c.rd, and I love connecting with people on Instagram. Maybe one day I'll get a TikTok, but I am indeed a millennial, so I don't think I'm going to.
It's so much work. I have tried so many different times to be consistent on there, and like it is fun for the engagement, but people who listen to this podcast know I am so inconsistent even on Instagram. So I'm like, you know what? Let me not put something else on my plate.
Yeah,
that's how I feel about it.
I've thought about it many times, but sometimes I just feel like I'm like the old lady that's trying to talk to the teenagers at the mall. It's just not too. It's just not working for me. But yeah, the other place you can find me too is my podcast, which is making a triumphant comeback soon. It's called Deep Breaths and Dance Breaks. It used to be called Whole, Full, and Alive, and I rebranded it to Deep Breaths and Dance Breaks recently because Deep Breaths and Dance Breaks is kind of like my shtick. Those are my 2 favorite tools for helping people get back into their bodies, besides, of course, good nutrition and body image. So yeah, thanks so much for having me, Dana.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure we'll do this again at some point.
Yeah, I can't wait. We'll do a podcast swap.
As always, thanks so much for listening to the Millennial Body Image Project. Find us on Instagram at Millennial Body Image Project, or you can find me at DanaMonsees_CNS. And if you have a question or topic you'd like me to cover on an episode, send an email to millennialbodyimageproject@gmail.com. And we'll see you next time.